Since the era of the Terry Fox Run more than 30 years ago, people have been walking, running and cycling across Canada looking for creative ways to capture the imaginations of people around the globe to raise support for their causes. Much like Joe Roberts. With a customized grocery cart, he plans to make the trek the summer of 2013 to shed light on the epidemic of youth homelessness, the story of his own life. I caught up with Joe in late July in Sicamous, BC, after pushing his cart from the city of Calgary to test the waters, so to speak, for his much longer cross-Canada walk.
So we've covered, I think, 470 kilometers or so thus far.
Wow.
We left on the 1st of July out of Calgary at the Salvation Army. We'll arrive in the downtown east side at the Harbor Light Salvation Army, which is a place that I used to frequent. It's a place where they used to give me a hot bowl of soup every day.
The goal was to reach Vancouver on August 25th, armed with the experience to make the walk in 2013 a success, which goes beyond just the physical strain of such a walk to a much greater challenge.
There's also, how do we engage the public? How do we engage a communication strategy, a public relations strategy? Because ultimately, when we do the full national trek next year, which will be the push for change, how do we inspire and enroll millions of Canadians and people worldwide to support us with their time and their treasure and their talent?
This challenge will be great, but the unwavering motivation stems from his own personal journey of homelessness that Joe says started at about 9 or 10 years old.
At a really young age, I had that fractured sense of self-worth. I had a hard time finding out who I was and where I fit into the world, and an opportunity presented itself and I started to use drugs. That continued as a pattern for the next 15 years of my life. By the time I was 15, I was a rebellious teenager. I ran away from home. By the time I was 16, I was getting in trouble within the legal system. By the time I was 17, I was experimenting with drugs intravenously. And as a direct result of that behavior, the priority to pay for rent or room or board really took sort of a back seat to my addiction.
Joe eventually found shelter underneath a viaduct in downtown Eastside Vancouver, struggling every day to find food and money to support his drug addiction. And he says he found himself sinking into hopelessness and despair.
I was a good kid from a good family. I knew the difference between right or wrong, and I can remember many nights sleeping underneath that viaduct thinking, where did I go wrong? What happened?
Joe says his active addiction alienated him from friends and family, and one memorable cold December day, he found himself in a downtown Eastside Vancouver pub looking for $10 for a hit.
Basically what happened was I sold the boots off my feet, and I remember walking out of that pub and my foot touched that cold concrete sidewalk, and a shiver, shot up through my calf and into my thigh. And that was sort of an epiphany, a moment. I share that as it was the worst and the best day of my life, because that was the moment where I finally reached up and out to God for help. And I made 2 promises that day. I said, if you give me a shot, I'll run through that door and I'll never look back. The other promise I made was if grace is bestowed, I'm going to do something to give back when I get the opportunity.
Joe's journey of recovery has not been an easy one, but with supports like the Salvation Army, he was able to rise up off the streets and has since married his wife Jennifer and has 2 beautiful daughters and runs a successful business with a deep faith in God. But he has never forgotten the second promise he made to give back. After some reflection and conversations with his business partner, a unique idea emerged.
The shopping cart represents that symbol of homelessness, and it's one of the outcomes that we're trying to avoid.
So Joe started working together with some sponsors to create a grocery cart he could actually push across Canada.
We took the kids' concept with the help of a local metal fabricator, put the shopping cart on, and then had one of our sponsors, Fast Signs, go ahead and sign it up.
With this cart, they hope to raise money to support an innovative mentorship program that addresses both early intervention in elementary schools as well as kids who have already become entrapped on the streets.
And you're not going to reach absolutely every kid. But if we can push a shopping cart from Calgary to Vancouver and then eventually across this nation and raise enough awareness and dollars to be able to pour into some of these kids, and make that difference, I think that's a worthy cause. Because I look at them and I see myself, and I know that with a little bit of help and some mentorship and some support, that the trajectory of their lives can change.
It takes more than one man's dream to make an initiative like the Push for Change happen. Partners like TELUS and Cloverdale Paints have come alongside to help make it a reality. Another key partner has been the Salvation Army, who has played a significant role in Joe's life on his journey to recovery.
I can always remember having that hand of non-judgment love, that if I needed a meal, I was fed. If I needed clothing, I was clothed. If I needed a place to stay, I was given that place to stay. When I was finally ready to make a difference and a change in my life, it was those resources that allowed me to find my way into a safe place and to find my road back to recovery.
Deb Lowell is the Public Relations Director for the Salvation Army in Abbotsford and got to know Joe after inviting him to speak at a donor luncheon after reading his book, Skid Row to CEO.
Well, I think we're supporting Joe because Joe has, on many occasions in his journey, turned to the Salvation Army, and I think it was just a natural partnership that we would in turn support him in his journey toward what he needs to do to fulfill his calling.
And Deb says that Joe's goals and motivation are the same as their local church and community.
Well, our vision and mission has been forever that we would be a transforming influence in the communities of our world, and that's through the love of Jesus Christ and sharing that and the message of hope with those around us. And certainly, again, he's supporting youth at risk, and that's something that we do here in the community of Abbotsford as well. So yeah, it was just a natural fit for us.
Joe's trial journey began at the Salvation Army Centre of Hope in Calgary, Alberta on July 1st, and on August 25th he rolled into the Lower East Side downtown Vancouver. He arrived at the Salvation Army Harbour Light with a few worn-out pairs of shoes and a more determined than ever heart to see young lives changed on the streets of Vancouver and across the country.
If we do this and we can achieve the goals, the big goals that we have for this program, and change the outcomes for some of these kids so they don't have to end up under a bridge, they don't have to end up on a street corner, they don't have to end up in a jail cell, then the blisters are worth it.
You can follow the plans for the Push for Change 2013 at their website, thepushforchange.com. In Sicamous, BC, Natalie Faith for 100 Huntley Street.